Going to be reviewing another kit today. This time we're looking at the 1/35 scale Tiger II Porsche Turret version by Dragon. Now let's get into it. Now, one thing to note about this particular kit is that it is an older boxing, so some of this information may not apply to the newer boxings, but right off the bat, we're given two little baggies of various parts to do the tracks, which are very nicely detailed, as well as a full thing of photo etch, metal tubing, as well as two different cupolas, or various clear parts, and of course our decals. Decals are very crisply done, very high quality. Now moving on, next up we have the first sprue containing various parts for the suspension and the wheels. These are all very nicely molded, very clean, crisp, sharply done, no complaints. Very nice to look at, and definitely scream to be weathered. Similar right here with some of the drive sprockets and various other detail parts such as exhaust, all very nicely molded. Now, here's where we start running into a bit of an issue. This particular boxing is an older version, and one thing this kit does not come with is the Zimmerit Coating pre-applied. You're going to have to apply it yourself. Now, I know Tamiya makes a little photo etch tool that lets you do it fairly easy, but still, that does present some difficulty. Now, on the flip side to this, however, is the fact that since you are going to be obviously applying it with putty, you can, in my opinion, it allows you to create a more realistic version when you're doing such things as damage, as obviously it's going to chip more like a putty chips as opposed to how plastic is going to look. So obviously this is it's an inconvenience, but at the same time it does present an opportunity. So something to be aware of when looking at getting this particular boxing of it. Now, I cannot speak for the newer boxings, as obviously I believe they've gone to pre-applied, which it would technically be appropriate to the early King Tigers, as those came with the Zimmerit pre-applied from the factory. Obviously, you want to make sure you check your references for which version you're doing at which time period. This is where this, again, potentially could play into effect, however, not so with the Porsche Turret version. Again, I could be wrong on that, but I'm almost certain that the Porsche Turret versions did not, due to the fact that it was only the first 20 had this particular turret configuration. Anyway, getting back to the kit, detail is fairly sparse here on the turret. Again, owing to a lot of the fact that it's going to get added on later as separate parts, which again is fairly nice. You do have a little bit of a mounting guide for some of the track racks that you can stick on. No detail on the inside though. Back here we have some of the other parts that go in, such as the mounting ring for the turret and some of the exhaust manifolds. Fairly standard lower hole. Nothing really jumps out as far as defects or highlights, just it's your basic standard Dragon hull. Now, moving on, here we have our main upper hull segment. Again, no Zimmerit, you're going to have to apply it yourself. In particular here, this is going to be a bit of a problem, as you're going to run the risk of losing some of this extra detail. One particular thing to note out is that it does have some detailing for weldments, which is nice. It's fairly nicely done. Other than that though, everything's in good order. Nothing really stands out there. Here we have, the rear half of, or the rear back plate of the tank. Again, nicely done. Here we have a couple of the plastic options that this particular kit gives you, just obviously as it is included, just simply because save on sprues, even though this kit gives you metal options. Next up we have some various other odds and end parts, including parts to do the assembly of the rear of the gun, as well as some of the other detail parts that go on the main hull, such as tools and the like. Everything's fairly straightforward there. Here we have some more gun parts, including as well as the bottom of the turret. Everything's fairly straightforward, your typical 2/2 sections for the gun, as well as a couple other odds and end parts. Next up we've got the secondary little machine gun that goes on top. Very nicely detailed, especially considering the scale. Everything's very nicely done. Here's also, if you're using the supplied metal barrel, which I'll get to in a minute, is the parts to do the muzzle brake, which I find interesting. As in other examples I've seen them as done differently, but I think this is an interesting way to do it, and will build up fairly nicely. Moving on, some more odds and end parts to be used with the various metal parts, as well as some other detail parts. Another sprue of tools, which is nice to have. More odds and end here. As well as more tie-down versions and different option parts, which is nice. It never hurts to have too many. You can never have too many option parts with a kit. Here we have some of the side skirts, as well as more parts to the gun, cupola and hatch, as well as a couple other fenders. But yeah, fairly standard Dragon quality. Nothing really jumps out as being erroneous or wrong. Very cleanly molded. And last but not least, we have some of the extra metal parts. 2 grill covers, our metal barrel. Not 100% sure what that particular piece is for, but I'm sure it plays in. Oops, sorry about that. Metal hooks, which I've never seen in a kit before, and very nice to have, as it does make cleanup a lot easier, since you're not having to sand a part that could very easily break on you, as well as a metal chain. A lot of stuff in a fairly decent packaging. Oops. Let me carefully stick this stuff back in so I might move on to the instruction sheet. Again, you do get a lot of various option parts with this kit, which is a nice thing to have. Now, one thing I really like about this instruction manual is the fact that it's full color. I mean, you would think this really wouldn't add too much in terms of helping or hurting you building a kit, but it surprisingly does help some. Now, obviously, a couple of places where we're using the metal parts, it does go back to your traditional line drawings. But overall, I like the fact that they included this in this manner, as it does help clarify some of the details that need to go on, and shows you where everything goes in a much, in my mind, a little clearer fashion. Now, one thing they do include here in the instructions is a Zimmerit application guide, which is a nice thing to have. since it does come without the Zimmerit. It's nice that they included that, and you do have a total of 5 different coloring options for this particular boxing. One thing to note though, it does have a bit of a correction, so you need to be aware of that. So overall, this kit does have a lot of good and bad. Obviously the lack of Zimmerit is not accurate to the early production Tiger IIs, but it does give you the chance to apply it yourself, which again opens up the options. Because of this, I really can't recommend this for less experienced modelers. It's definitely a kit you'd want some more experience before tackling because of those issues. But overall, it's a very nice kit. I do recommend it for more experienced modelers because it does give you a lot of options, a lot of different things you can do. And it's one of those kits that screams to be used in a diorama. So that was a look at Dragon's 1/35th scale King Tiger Porsche Turret version. Till next time.